Maya Rodriguez wiped sweat from her forehead as she climbed over the broken stone wall. The twin suns of Kepler 442b beat down on her back through her environmental suit. She had been exploring these ruins for 3 days now, and still had no idea what this place used to be. The dead city stretched out before her like a maze of crumbling towers and empty streets. Whatever race had built this place was long gone. Dr. Alex Chun, the team's expert on alien cultures, said they probably died out thousands of years ago. Maya was just a lieutenant in the Space Marines, but she loved discovering new things on these dead worlds. Rodriguez's report came Captain Lisa Park's voice through her helmet radio. Still searching Sector 7, Captain. Found some interesting carvings, but nothing useful yet, Maya replied, stepping carefully around a pile of rubble. Keep looking. Command wants a full survey before we move to the next site. Maya turned off her radio and continued walking through the empty streets. The buildings here were different from anything humans had seen before. They had smooth, curved walls that seemed to flow like water that had been frozen in time. Strange. Symbols covered many of the surfaces, but the translation computers could not figure out what they meant. She turned a corner and stopped. In front of her stood a building that was almost completely intact. Unlike the others, this one had no damage from time or weather. The walls seemed to shine with a faint blue light that pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. Maya checked her scanner. The building was giving off some kind of energy, but it was very weak. She called back to base camp. Captain, I found something. Sending coordinates now. What is it, Rodriguez? A building that's still active. It's giving off some kind of signal. There was a pause. Stay back until Dr. Chun gets there. Don't touch anything. Maya waited by the entrance for 20 minutes before Dr. Chun arrived with 2 other scientists. He was a thin man with gray hair, who always looked excited about everything they found. Fascinating, he said, running his scanner over the walls. The energy readings are very strange. It's almost like the building is waiting for something. They entered carefully. Inside, the walls glowed brighter, and Maya could feel a strange vibration in the air. The main room was circular, with a raised platform in the center. On the platform sat something that looked like a crystal bowl, the size of a bathtub. What do you think it is? Maya asked. Dr. Chun walked around the crystal bowl, taking readings. I'm not sure. The shape suggests it might be some kind of resonance chamber. Perhaps they used it for communication, or maybe religious ceremonies. Maya moved closer to get a better look. The crystal was beautiful, almost clear, but with swirls of blue and silver running through it. As she leaned over it, she noticed something strange. The pulsing light seemed to match her heartbeat. Doctor, look at this, she said. The light pattern changed when I got close. Dr. Chun hurried over with his equipment. You're right. It's responding to your presence somehow. Move back slowly. As Maya stepped away, the light dimmed. When she moved closer again, it grew brighter. It's reading biometrics, Dr. Chun said, excitement growing in his voice. Heart rate, breathing, maybe even brain waves. But why? Maya asked. I don't know. Maybe try touching it? Captain Park said not to touch anything. Just one finger. Very carefully. Maya looked at the crystal bowl for a long moment. Something about it felt familiar, like a song she had heard before, but couldn't quite remember. Without really thinking about it, she started humming a tune her grandmother used to sing to her when she was little. The moment the first note left her lips, everything changed. The crystal bowl exploded with light, so bright that their helmet visors automatically darkened. The vibration in the air became a deep, musical tone that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The walls around them began to glow with patterns of light that moved like waves. What did you do? Dr. Chun shouted over the sound. I was just humming. Maya shouted back. The tone grew louder and more complex, as if other voices were joining. In from far away. Maya realized she could still hear her own humming, but now it sounded different, richer, like it was being played by an entire orchestra. Then, as suddenly as it had started, everything stopped. The crystal bowl returned to its gentle blue glow, and the walls dimmed back to normal. Dr. Chon was staring at his equipment with his mouth open. "Rodriguez, you need to see this." Maya looked at his scanner. The energy reading was now 100, times stronger than before, and there were new signals appearing on the display. What does it mean? It means this device just sent out some kind of pulse. And according to these readings, that pulse was detected by other devices, just like this one. 3 different star systems just lit up on our long-range sensors. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. "You mean there are more of these things out there?" "Not just more. Maya, I think you just activated some kind of ancient communication network. And whoever built it designed it to respond to." He paused, looking confused. "To human music." Far away on Earth, in a small apartment in New York City, Jake Thompson was practicing his violin. He had been playing the same song over and over, trying to get it perfect for tomorrow's street performance. It was an old song from a group called BLACKPINK, but he had arranged it for violin in his own style. Jake had no idea that his music videos broadcast across the galaxy through underground networks had been watched by millions of aliens who found human music strangely affecting. He didn't know that his version of this particular song had caused riots on 3 different worlds when alien workers refused to return to their jobs after hearing it. As Maya stood in the alien ruins, staring at the now quiet crystal bowl, Jake hit the perfect note in his practice session. For just a moment, thousands of light years apart, 2 humans made music that would change the galaxy forever. Neither of them knew it yet, but they had just taken the first step toward humanity's greatest discovery, that music was not just art, but power. The kind of power that could reshape civilizations, break down barriers between species, and turn weapons into instruments of peace. The ancient network was awake again, and it was listening for the songs of Earth. Captain Lisa Park stood on the bridge of the U.S. Discovery, watching the screen with growing worry. 3 alien ships had appeared at the edge of the star system 6 hours ago. They were moving slowly toward Kepler 442b, and their ships were bigger than anything in the human fleet. "Any response to our messages?" she asked. "Nothing, Captain," replied Communications Officer Danny Wright. "They're not answering our calls, but they're definitely scanning us." Lisa had been in space for 15 years, but she had never seen ships like these. They were dark gray and shaped like giant arrows, with strange markings along their sides. Her computer identified them as hegemony vessels, but humans had never made contact with the hegemony before. "Captain," said Science Officer Kate Miller, "I'm reading massive energy signatures from those ships. They have weapons that could destroy our ship with one shot. What do they want?" Lisa asked, though she was afraid she already knew the answer. Down on the planet, Dr. Chun was working frantically to understand the crystal device. Maya and the rest of the team had been ordered to pack up and prepare for evacuation, but Chun refused to leave. "This is the most important discovery in human history," he told Maya as she helped him carry equipment. "We can't just abandon it because some aliens showed up." "Dr. Chun, those ships up there could kill us all," Maya said. "Whatever that thing is, it's not worth dying for. But don't you see? They came here because of what you did. The pulse you sent out, it got their attention. They know about this network." Maya looked back at the glowing building. Part of her wanted to go back inside and hum again, just to see what would happen. But the smart part of her brain knew that was a terrible idea. "Doctor, we have our orders. Captain Park wants everyone back on the ship in 2 hours." Chun nodded. sadly, and picked up his scanner. Just let me take a few more readings. Meanwhile, on Earth, Jake Thompson had no idea that his life was about to change completely. He was setting up his equipment in Washington Square Park, getting ready for his daily performance. A small crowd was already gathering, including some people with tablets and cameras who always recorded his shows. Jake liked playing in the park because the acoustics were good, and people actually listened instead of just walking by. Today he planned to play his arrangement of that BLACKPINK song again. He had been working on it for weeks, and yesterday he finally felt like he had it right. What Jake didn't know was that his performances were being broadcast far beyond Earth. A network of human space traders had been sending his videos to alien worlds for months, trading them for rare metals and exotic technologies. Human music had become incredibly valuable in certain parts of the galaxy. On the planet Zephyr Prime, Ambassador Kalen was watching Jake's latest video for the third time. Kalen belonged to a species called the Zephyrians, who are known throughout the galaxy for their logical minds and complete lack of emotion. They made excellent diplomats because they never got angry or excited about anything. But watching Jake play his violin made Kalen feel something strange. It started as a small flutter in his chest, then grew into something bigger. By the end of the video, Kalen realized he was what humans would call moved by the music. This had never happened to him before. Fascinating, he said to his assistant. Play it again. Back in space, the 3 hegemony ships had moved into orbit around Kepler 442b. Captain Lisa was trying to decide whether to fight or run when her communications officer suddenly sat up straight. Captain, I'm getting a signal from one of the hegemony ships, but it's not coming through normal channels. What do you mean? It's coming through our entertainment system. Someone is trying to communicate using our music database. Lisa frowned. Put it on screen. The main display flickered and then showed a creature that looked like a cross between a lizard and a bird. It had dark scales, bright yellow eyes, and a beak full of sharp teeth. When it spoke, its voice was harsh and clicking. Human vessel, this is Commander Thrix of the Hegemony Third Fleet. We have detected use of forbidden technology on this world. Surrender the device immediately or be destroyed. Lisa took a deep breath. This is Captain Park of the UES Discovery. We found some old ruins and we're just studying them. We don't want any trouble. The device you activated is dangerous. It sends signals that disrupt proper order. Our scouts detected the pulse from 3 star systems away. You will give us the device, or we will take it by force. What makes you think it's dangerous? Lisa asked, trying to buy time. Commander Thrix made a sound like a growl. Because it makes our people weak. It fills their minds with strange thoughts and makes them question their duty. This infection must not be allowed to spread. Down on the planet, Dr. Chun was listening to the conversation through his radio. He turned to Maya with excitement in his eyes. Did you hear that? The device doesn't just send signals. It affects how other species think and feel. Maya, I think you discovered something that can actually change alien minds. Change them how? Maya asked. I'm not sure yet. But if these hegemony people are afraid of it, maybe it does something good. On Earth, Jake had started playing his violin. The crowd in the park was bigger than usual, and everyone seemed more focused on his music than normal. He didn't notice the man in the expensive suit standing at the back, talking quietly into a phone. Yes, sir, the man was saying. The subject is performing now. The aliens are definitely responding to his music. We should bring him in for questioning. Jake finished his first song and was about to start the BLACKPINK arrangement when his phone buzzed with an emergency alert. He looked at the screen and his blood went cold. Alien contact situation. All citizens remain calm. Government officials will provide updates soon. Jake looked up and saw that everyone in the crowd was reading the same message. People started talking excitedly, some looking scared, others excited. But nobody left. They all wanted to hear him play. "Well," Jake said into his microphone, "I guess this is a historic day. How about some music to help us all feel better?" He raised his violin and began to play. The melody started soft and sweet, then grew stronger and more complex. As the music filled the park, people stopped talking and started listening with an intensity Jake had never seen before. What nobody knew was that the song was being picked up by satellites and broadcast to ships throughout the solar system. On the Zephyrian diplomatic vessel approaching Earth, Ambassador Kalin heard the music and felt that strange flutter in his chest again. "Set course for Earth immediately," he told his pilot. "I must speak with these humans about their music." The galaxy was about to discover that humanity's greatest weapon was not technology or military might, but something far more powerful: the ability to make other beings feel. Dr. Chun stared at his computer screen in amazement. After 3 days of studying the data from the crystal device, he finally understood what they had found. His hands were shaking as he called Captain Park. "Captain, you need to get down here. Right now. Bring Maya too. I figured out what this thing is." 20 minutes later, Captain Park and Maya stood in the alien building, watching Dr. Chun pace back and forth in excitement. The crystal bowl still glowed softly, pulsing in rhythm with some unknown heartbeat. "This isn't just one device, Doctor," Chun began. "It's part of a network that once covered the entire galaxy. Look at this." He pointed to his tablet, which showed a map of nearby star systems. Dozens of dots were scattered across the display, each one pulsing with the same blue light. Each dot is another device like this one. They're all connected somehow, sending signals faster than light speed. The species that built this, I'm calling them the harmonists. They used music and sound to communicate across impossible distances. But they're all dead now, Maya said. "What happened to them?" Dr. Chun's expression grew serious. "I think they were wiped out by someone who was afraid of what they could do. Someone like the hegemony." Captain Park studied the map. "How many of these devices are there?" "Hundreds, maybe thousands. But here's the amazing part. They're not just for communication. Look at these biological readings." Chun pulled up another screen showing complex wave patterns. When Maya hummed near the device, it didn't just send out a signal. It also scanned her brain patterns, her emotions, even her memories. The harmonists built this network to share feelings and thoughts between different species. "That's impossible," Park said. "No, Captain, it's not. The device creates harmonic frequencies that directly affect brain chemistry. When someone hears the right combination of sounds, it can make them feel empathy, understanding, even love for people they've never met." Maya felt a chill. "You mean it's some kind of mind control?" "Not control. Influence. But not in a bad way. Think about it, Maya. You hummed a simple song, and it made the device respond to you like you were one of its builders. The harmonists designed this network to bring species together, to make them understand each other." Up in orbit, Commander Ben Foster had just arrived with a fleet of 6 human ships. As the leader of humanity's first contact team, he was supposed to handle situations exactly like this one. But nothing in his training had prepared him for what he found. The hegemony ships were still in orbit, but they hadn't attacked. Instead, they seemed to be waiting for something. Ambassador Kalin's Zephyrian ship had also arrived, along with vessels from 2 other species Foster had never seen before. "Captain Park," Foster said over the radio, "what exactly did you people find?" "Down there? Half the galaxy seems to be interested in it. It's complicated, Commander. Dr. Chun thinks it's some kind of ancient communication network that responds to human music." Foster rubbed his forehead. This was getting stranger by the hour. "And the aliens want it?" Some of them do. Others want to destroy it. Commander Thrix from the hegemony keeps saying it's dangerous. What do you think? There was a long pause before Park answered. I think we found something that could change everything, but I'm not sure if that's good or bad. On Earth, Jake Thompson was sitting in a government office, staring at a room full of people in suits. They had picked him up right after his performance in the park, and nobody would tell him why. Mr. Thompson, said a woman named Director Sarah. Kim, we need to ask you some questions about your music. What about it? Jake asked. I'm not doing anything illegal. No, you're not. But your performances are having some unexpected effects. We've received reports that alien species have been ... responding to your music in unusual ways. Jake laughed. Aliens? Are you serious? Director Kim showed him a video on her tablet. It showed a group of tall, thin creatures with blue skin watching one of his performances. As the music played, the aliens began moving their heads in rhythm, and some of them appeared to be crying. These are Andorians, Kim explained. They're known for being completely emotionless. But when they hear your music, they start showing feelings for the first time in their lives. Jake stared at the video in shock. I don't understand. How is that possible? We're not sure yet. But Mr. Thompson, we think your music might be humanity's most important discovery. We need you to help us figure out how it works. Back on Kepler 442b, Maya was standing next to the crystal device again. Dr. Chun had asked her to try humming different songs to see how the network responded. So far, every piece of human music had activated it, but some songs were stronger than others. Try something. Sad, Chun suggested. A song that makes you feel emotional. Maya thought for a moment, then began humming a lullaby her mother used to sing. The device immediately began glowing brighter, and the patterns on the walls became more complex. Interesting, Chun said, watching his readings. The signal is different this time. More ... gentle, like it's designed to comfort rather than excite. Doctor, Maya said suddenly, what if this network wasn't built as a weapon at all? What if it was built to heal? Chun looked up from his tablet. What do you mean? Think about it. The harmonists used music to help different species understand each other. Maybe they built this network to stop wars, not start them. That would explain why the hegemony is so afraid of it, Chun said slowly. Their entire civilization is based on conquest and control. If their soldiers suddenly started feeling empathy for their enemies, they'd stop fighting, Maya finished. Suddenly, the crystal device began pulsing faster. Both Maya and Chun looked around in alarm as the walls filled with swirling patterns of light. What's happening? Maya asked. Chun checked his readings. Someone else is using the network. Multiple someones. The whole system is coming alive. On ships throughout the galaxy, other crystal devices were activating. Jake's music, broadcast from Earth, was being picked up and amplified by the ancient network. For the first time in thousands of years, the harmonist's greatest creation was working exactly as intended. On the Hegemony flagship, Commander Thrix felt something he had never experienced before. As Jake's violin music flowed through his ship's communication system, the lizard-like alien found himself thinking about his enemies, not as things to be destroyed, but as beings with feelings and families of their own. Sir, said his lieutenant, our soldiers are requesting permission to stand down. They say they don't want to fight anymore. Thrix tried to order his troops to attack, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, he found himself humming along with the strange human music. The weapon that heals was finally awakening, and the galaxy would never be the same. General Crixter slammed his massive fist on the command table, causing several junior officers to jump back in fear. The reports coming in from across Hegemony space were all the same, and they made him furious. Explain to me again how an entire battalion of our best warriors suddenly refused to attack a human colony. He growled at his intelligence officer. Sir, they were exposed to human music broadcasts. Our soldiers say they could not bring themselves to fire on the civilians after hearing the sounds. Krixter was the supreme military commander of the hegemony, a position he had earned through centuries of brutal conquest. His species, the Draknari, were natural predators who had built their empire by crushing anyone who stood in their way. The idea that his soldiers could be stopped by mere sounds was unthinkable. And this is happening everywhere? Yes, sir. 17 different worlds have reported similar incidents. Human music seems to cause what our scientists are calling empathy, poisoning in our troops. Then we eliminate the source, Krixter declared. Order the Second Fleet to Earth. Destroy every human world before this infection spreads further. On the human colony of New Geneva, civilian musician Emma Walsh was hiding in her apartment as explosions shook the building. The hegemony had attacked without warning 3 hours ago, and the colony's defenses were quickly failing. Emma was not a soldier. She was a violin teacher who had moved to New Geneva to start a music school. But as she listened to the sounds of battle outside, she realized she might be the only person who could help. Emma had been following the news about Jake Thompson and the strange effects human music was having on aliens. She had even tried playing some of his arrangements herself, posting videos online that got thousands of views from across the galaxy. Now, as laser fire lit up the sky outside her window, Emma made a decision that would change everything. She picked up her violin and walked onto her balcony. The sounds of war filled the air, ships screaming overhead, explosions in the distance, and the terrible noise of buildings being destroyed. But Emma began to play anyway. She started with a simple melody, something sad and beautiful that she had learned as a child. Her violin was not amplified, and she knew only a few people could hear her over the noise of battle. But somehow, that didn't matter. Down in the streets, a squad of hegemony soldiers was advancing toward the human shelter. They were tall, gray-skinned creatures with 4 arms and cold, emotionless faces. They had never failed to complete a mission in their entire military careers. But as Emma's music drifted down from the balcony above, something strange happened to the lead soldier. He stopped walking and tilted his head, listening to the violin with confusion in his eyes. "What is that sound?" he asked his squad leader. "Irrelevant. Continue the advance." But the soldier couldn't move. The music was doing something to his mind, showing him images of creatures he had never seen before. Small, soft beings that looked vulnerable and afraid. For the first time in his life, he felt something other than duty and aggression. I cannot continue," he said, lowering his weapon. "What did you say?" his squad leader demanded. "The humans. They have families, children. I cannot kill children." More soldiers began stopping as Emma's music reached them. One by one, the entire squad laid down their weapons and sat on the ground, listening to the violin with expressions of wonder and confusion. In orbit above New Geneva, Captain Ryan Davis of the UES Defender was watching his tactical display in amazement. The hegemony ground forces had completely stopped their advance. Some units were even retreating back to their landing ships. "Captain," said his communications officer, "I'm picking up music from the colony surface. Someone is broadcasting a violin performance on all frequencies. Put it through the ship's speakers." Ryan ordered. As Emma's music filled the bridge of the Defender, Ryan felt something he had never experienced in battle before. Instead of anger at the enemy, he felt sadness for all the lives being lost. Instead of hatred for the hegemony, he felt pity for soldiers who had never been allowed to choose their own path. "Sir," said his weapons officer, "the hegemony ships are pulling back. Some of them are sending surrender signals." "On Earth, Jake." Thompson was in a recording studio. working with a team of scientists and musicians to understand how his music affected alien minds. They had been testing different songs and arrangements, trying to figure out which combinations were most effective. "Play the BLACKPINK arrangement again," said Dr. Lisa Park, Ben Foster's sister and a specialist in alien psychology. "But this time, add more bass frequencies." The Draknari seemed to respond better to lower tones. Jake adjusted his violin and began to play. As the music flowed through the studio's powerful transmission system, it was broadcast to every human colony and ship in space. On the Hegemony flagship, General Krixter was trying to maintain control of his forces when Jake's enhanced music reached his ship. The general felt the same strange weakness that had affected his soldiers, but his iron will allowed him to resist. "Cut all communication channels," he ordered. "Block these human transmissions immediately." But it was too late. Throughout his fleet, Hegemony soldiers were laying down their weapons and refusing orders. Some were even asking to speak with human prisoners, wanting to understand these strange creatures who could fight with sounds instead of violence. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we have lost contact with 60% of our ground forces. They are no longer responding to commands." Krixter realized that traditional military tactics would not work against this new form of warfare. The humans had found a way to turn his own soldiers against him without firing a shot. "Prepare the orbital bombardment cannon," he commanded. "If we cannot take the human worlds by force, we will destroy them from space. No survivors." But even as he gave the order, Krixter could feel the human music affecting his own mind. Images of the creatures he was about to kill filled his thoughts, not as enemies, but as living beings with hopes and dreams and families who loved them. For the first time in his long military career, General Krixter hesitated before ordering. The death of an entire world dot back on New Geneva. Emma Walsh continued playing her violin as the sounds of battle slowly faded around her. She could see Hegemony soldiers in the streets below, but they were no longer fighting. Instead, they were sitting quietly, listening to her music with expressions of peace on their alien faces. Emma realized that humanity had discovered something more powerful than any weapon ever built. They had found a way to touch the hearts of their enemies and remind them that beneath all the anger and violence, every thinking creature wanted the same things: safety, love, and a chance to live in peace. The war was far from over, but for the first time since the fighting began, there was hope. Captain Ryan Davis stood on the bridge of the USS Defender, watching the massive Hegemony fleet approaching Earth. 300 enemy ships moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls blocking out the stars. In 6 hours, they would reach humanity's home world. "Sir," said his communications officer, "Admiral Foster wants to speak with you." Ben Foster's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired and worried, but his voice was steady. "Ryan, we've got one chance to stop them. Dr. Chun believes we can activate every harmony node in the galaxy at the same time, but we need a massive musical performance to power the network." "How massive?" Ryan asked. "Every musician on every human world, all playing together. Jake Thompson is coordinating from Earth. The plan is to create a harmony wave so powerful that it reaches every Hegemony ship simultaneously." Ryan looked at the approaching enemy fleet. "Will it work?" "I don't know, but it's the only plan we have." On Earth, Jake Thompson stood in the center of a huge concert hall in New York City. Around him, musicians from every genre and every part of the world were setting up their instruments. Classical violinists sat next to rock guitarists. Jazz musicians tuned their horns while folk singers warmed up their voices. Jake had never conducted an orchestra before, but everyone looked to him as their leader. His simple violin covers had started this whole situation, and now he had to finish it. Remember, he said into his microphone. "We're not just playing for Earth. Musicians on Mars, Europa, Titan, and every human colony are going to play with us. We need to stay in perfect sync." Emma Walsh had arrived from New Geneva just 2 hours earlier. Her performance had saved her colony, and now she was part of humanity's last hope. She sat in the first violin section, her instrument ready. "I've never played with this many people before," she whispered to the musician next to her. "None of us have," he replied. "But if Jake's right, we're about to make the most important music in human history." On Kepler 442b, Maya Rodriguez stood, next to the crystal device that had started everything. Dr. Chun was monitoring the ancient network, watching as harmony nodes across the galaxy came online one by one. "The network is responding," he told Maya over the radio. "Every device the harmonists ever built is waking up. But Maya, we need someone at this end to guide the signal. You're the only person who's successfully operated this device before." Maya looked at the crystal bowl, remembering the first time she had hung near it. That simple moment had led to this desperate attempt to save humanity from destruction. "What do I need to do?" she asked. "Just sing, Maya. Sing along with Jake's orchestra and help the network carry their music to every corner of the galaxy." In space near Earth, General Krixter prepared his fleet for the final attack. His orbital bombardment cannons were charged and ready to turn Earth's surface into glass. But even as he gave his final orders, he could feel the human music working. On his mind, "Sir," reported his weapons officer, "the humans are broadcasting music again. It's much stronger this time. Block all communications. Fire on any ship that fails to follow orders." But Krixter's own officers were beginning to waver. The music was affecting them too, and some were openly questioning the attack. "General," said his second-in-command, "perhaps we should consider negotiations. The humans have not fired on us. They only play their sounds." Krixter roared in anger, but part of him wondered if his officer was right. The humans had weapons, but they chose to fight with music instead. What kind of enemy does that? In the concert hall on Earth, Jake raised his violin and looked out at the massive orchestra. Musicians filled every seat, and more were connected by video link from around the world. On screens around the hall, he could see similar gatherings on Mars, Europa, and dozens of other human worlds. "This is for everyone who ever believed that music could change the world," Jake said. "Let's prove them right." He lifted his bow and began to play the opening notes of his BLACKPINK arrangement. But this version was different, expanded to include parts for every instrument in the orchestra. As the music began, thousands of musicians joined in, creating a sound unlike anything ever heard before. The harmony was perfect. Every violin, every horn, every drum was in sync across light years of space. The ancient network carried their music instantly to every harmony node in the galaxy, amplifying it and spreading it further than any radio wave could travel. On Kepler 442b, Maya felt the music flow through her as she sang along with the distant orchestra. The crystal device blazed with light, and she could feel the network responding to every note. "It's working!" Dr. Chun shouted over the sound. "The harmony wave is spreading faster than light. It's reaching every system in the galaxy." On ships throughout hegemony space, soldiers stopped what they were doing and listened. The music was more beautiful and more powerful than anything they had ever experienced. It showed them images of peace, of different species working together, of children playing under alien suns. On a hegemony world called Krex Prime, workers in the weapon factories put down their tools and walked outside to listen to the sky. The music was coming from everywhere at once, and it filled them with hope for a future they had never imagined. General Krixter felt the music hit his flagship like a physical force. His bridge crew stopped working and stood motionless, listening, with expressions of wonder. The general himself felt his anger melting away, replaced by something he had no words for. "Sir," whispered his weapons officer, "I cannot fire on the humans. The music ... It shows me that they are not our enemies." "They are the enemy," Krixler shouted, but his voice lacked conviction. "No, sir. I think we are the ones who have been wrong." Across the hegemony fleet, the same scene was playing out on hundreds of ships. Soldiers were laying down their weapons, pilots were refusing to attack, and officers were questioning orders they had never doubted before. The harmony wave continued to spread, reaching worlds that had been at war for centuries. On each planet it touched, fighting stopped as beings of all species listened to the humans' impossible music. On Earth, Jake could feel the power of what they were creating. The music was bigger than any one person, bigger than any one world. It was humanity's gift to the galaxy, a song that reminded every living creature that they were not alone in the universe. As the final notes of the symphony echoed across space, something fundamental had changed. The Harmony Network was fully active again after thousands of years of silence, and it carried a simple message to every corner of the galaxy, that music was stronger than weapons, that understanding was more powerful than fear, and that even the darkest hearts could be touched by the universal language of song. The war was ending, not with explosions and death, but with the most beautiful music the galaxy had ever heard. 6 months after the Great Harmony, Maya Rodriguez stood in the main hall of what was now called the Galactic Conservatory. The building had been constructed around the original crystal device on Kepler 442b, and students from 40 different species came here to learn about music and art. Maya was no longer just a space marine. She had become humanity's first ambassador of harmony, helping to manage the network that now connected thousands of worlds in peace. The title still felt strange to her, but she had gotten used to the responsibility. Ambassador Rodriguez said. Her assistant, a young Zephyrian named Kira, who had been one of the first aliens to respond to human music. "The morning classes are ready to begin." Maya nodded and walked toward the teaching halls. Through the windows, she could see students of all shapes and sizes practicing together. Tall, blue-skinned Andorians played flutes alongside short, furry Bectans who preferred drums. Even former hegemony soldiers were learning to make music instead of war dot in the main classroom. Dr. Chun was teaching a group of mixed species about the history of the Harmony Network. He had become the galaxy's leading expert on harmonist technology, and his research had revealed amazing things about the ancient civilization. The harmonists built this network over 10,000 years ago, he explained to his students. They discovered what humans learned by accident, that music can create understanding between any intelligent species. But they were destroyed by those who feared change. A young Draknari student raised her hand. "Professor, why did my people try to destroy the network? Why were we so afraid of music?" Chun smiled gently. The Draknari had changed the most of any species since the Great Harmony. Their entire culture had been built on conquest and aggression. But now they were some of the most enthusiastic music students in the galaxy. "Fear makes people do terrible things," Chun said. "Your ancestors were afraid that if their soldiers learned empathy, they would refuse to fight. They were right to be afraid, but wrong to think that was a bad thing." On Earth, Jake Thompson was preparing for his latest performance at Carnegie Hall, but this concert was different from any ever held there before. Half the musicians on stage were aliens, and the audience included beings from across the galaxy. Jake had become famous throughout known space, but he never let it go to his head. He still remembered being a simple street musician who just wanted to play beautiful music. Now he was humanity's cultural ambassador, but his job was basically the same: make music that touched people's hearts. 5 minutes to curtain, Jake," said his manager, a friendly Androsan who had given up his career as a military engineer to work in the arts. Jake picked up his violin, and walked toward the stage. Tonight's program included pieces from 12 different worlds arranged for a mixed orchestra of human and alien musicians. The final piece was his famous BLACKPINK arrangement, but expanded into a full symphony that included traditional instruments from every member species of the new Galactic Alliance. In the audience, General Krixter sat in the front row with his family. The former hegemony commander had become one of the most surprising converts to the new way of life. After the Great Harmony, he had surrendered his entire fleet and asked to learn about human culture. Now he worked as a peace negotiator, helping to resolve conflicts between species who had been enemies for centuries. His young daughter, Vex, had become one of the most talented alien violinists in the galaxy. "Father," Vex whispered as the lights dimmed, "do you think Jake will play the song that changed everything?" Krixter smiled and patted his daughter's hand. "I hope so, little one. That song gave us a new life." The concert began with a piece written by a Zephyrian composer, followed by a traditional beaten war chant that had been transformed into a peaceful celebration. Each song showed how music could bring out the best in every species. When Jake finally stepped forward for the final piece, the audience fell completely silent. He raised his violin and began the familiar melody that had started the galactic transformation. But this time, he wasn't playing alone. One by one, the alien musicians joined in. Zephyrian flutes added a haunting harmony. Androsan drums provided a steady heartbeat. Draknari horn players, who had once used their voices for battle cries, now sang in perfect tune with the melody. As the music built to its climax, something magical happened. The Harmony Network, now openly used throughout the galaxy, picked up the performance and carried it to every world at once. On thousands of planets, people stopped what they were doing and listened to the most beautiful music ever created. On New Geneva, Emma Walsh was teaching a class of children from 6 different species. When Jake's music reached them through the network, all the children began humming along, their voices blending in perfect harmony despite their different languages and cultures. On former hegemony worlds, factories that once built weapons now manufactured musical instruments. Workers who had never been allowed to express creativity or learning to paint, sing, and dance for the first time in their lives. Even on the most remote frontier planets, explorers carried small harmony devices that could connect them instantly to the galactic network. No one had to be alone anymore, because the music could reach anywhere. As Jake's performance ended, the audience erupted in applause that lasted for 10 minutes. But more importantly, across the galaxy, former enemies were shaking hands, signing peace treaties, and planning joint cultural exchanges. The network that had once been a weapon of empathy had become something even greater, a foundation for the first truly peaceful galactic civilization in known history. Maya stood on the balcony of the conservatory that night, looking up at the stars. Each point of light represented a world where the old hatreds were being replaced by understanding. Children who would have grown up as soldiers were instead learning to be artists, scientists, and philosophers. Dr. Chun joined her on the balcony, holding 2 cups of tea. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't hummed that day?" he asked. Maya thought about it for a moment. "I think someone else would have eventually. The network was waiting for us. Maybe the harmonists knew that someday a species would come along that was ready to use their gift properly." "Maybe," Chun agreed, "but I'm glad it was humans. We may not be the strongest or smartest species in the galaxy, but we're pretty good at making music." They stood in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of students practicing in the halls below. Somewhere in the building, a group of young Draknari were learning to play jazz. In another room, human and Zephyrian children were singing lullabies together. The galaxy was finally singing in harmony, and the song would never end. Far away on Earth, Jake Thompson put his violin back in its case and smiled. Tomorrow, he would teach another master class to students from across the galaxy. Next week, he would perform at the opening ceremony for the new Interspecies University. Next month, he would help judge the first ever galactic music competition. He had gone from playing on street corners to changing the fate of civilizations, all because he loved to make beautiful music. And the best part was, this was just the beginning. With each new song, each new student, each new friendship between former enemies, the harmony grew stronger. The galaxy had found its voice at last, and it was singing humanity's song.